I've been listening to lo-fi hip-hop on and off for years now, so today I thought I'd do something a little bit different and share 5 lo-fi albums with you that are kind of my all-time favourites, I think. So there's obviously more albums that I listen to in my back catalogue, but these 5 are ones that stand out for some sort of particular reason. So let's get into this one. Hopefully it's a way of you finding some new music to listen to, and don't forget to leave in the comments below your favourite lo-fi album of all time as well. If you all share those comments, then hopefully we can all find some new music to listen to, and don't be shamelessly plugging your own albums. I'm onto you already, don't worry. Okay, up first is an album called Red Flower by Dom Philippe. Now, when I first heard this album, it was really like nothing I'd ever heard before in the kind of lo-fi beat making genre. It's a really kind of stripped back, minimal sounding album, and I really like that because of it. I just think it's completely unique in that respect. This album came out in 2017, so it really is at the heart of that whole lo-fi buzz, but it really has got its own character of sound. And one thing that I particularly like about this is the prominence of the percussion. Like I said, it's a very, very stripped back kind of sound, but the percussion and the way it is so forward in the mix, I really, really enjoy that about this album. As well as that, the sample selections are amazing. There's a lot of jazzy influenced stuff in there, but I really like the kind of haunting feel that the samples that he chose gave to the overall album. So this is definitely worth a listen, this one. It really makes you think about how you mix your beats and what should go where in the mix. And this really opened my eyes up to a completely new approach to making beats, mixing beats, and what things can sound like if you do that. So it's a really interesting album to listen to. Definitely recommend it. Even if it's slightly out of the normal sound of lo-fi, I still think it's worth a listen for those reasons that I've just mentioned. Okay, next up is Koryeo, Young Vibes. Now this has been on my listening roster for such a long time. I think the first time I ever found this, I was completely drawn in by the cover. Check it out. I'll leave the thumbnail to each of them, but I really do think that cover really attracted my attention. And the thing I like about this one is the kind of jazzy vibes again. There's a lot of piano samples in this one, and I really, really enjoy that about it. That was one of the first things that got me into lo-fi in the first place, was the kind of jazzy flips. And these drums as well, I think the drums in this album are absolutely amazing. He's managed to use those really whippy snares, and that's something that I've never really been able to replicate myself personally. And just the whole sort of feel of the rhythms in this album in particular, I think are really, really nice. They've got loads of swing, loads of groove, and that's why it's one of the albums that I always put on when I want to listen to a little bit of lo-fi. But yeah, there's loads of crazy, meshy sounding snares in this one. I love the sound of those. Check them out and see what you think. All in all, I think that's the main thing for me in this album that really draws me in. It is the use of the percussion, the snares, and the overall feel of the beats as well. It definitely is a great album, so make sure you check it out. Okay, next up is another one from 2016, and this one's a bit of a classic. It's Yerba by Sleep Dealer. Now, some of these albums are quite old in these beat makers' catalogues, and that's because when I was getting into lo-fi quite a lot, what I'd often do is go on Spotify and go right to the start of their discography and check out their earlier stuff. So that's one of the ways that I found this album, and obviously just through related artists and stuff like that on Spotify. The algorithms are amazing, so that's how I found Yerba. And this has got to be one of those classic lo-fi albums, I think. It just feels like every track on this one is an absolute banger. In particular, Rolling Papers is one of my favourite beats of all time, probably. Just the overall sound of it, and the rhythms, and the use of the vocal stabs as well. Just think there's loads going on in this album that's worth listening to. It's full of things to inspire your own beats, so definitely go and check this one out. It's a real classic of the lo-fi world. Yerba by Sleep Dealer, a top lo-fi artist of that era. Okay, next up is an album called Expedition Number 7, and then brackets Moon Loops. This is by a guy called Flog Hand, and this for me is just so nostalgic of that era. It really reminds me of where I was working at that time. When I was working back then, I used to spend a lot of time listening to music to and from work when I was cycling, because luckily there was very secluded roads and cycle paths that I was on, so I was able to listen to music at the same time as I was cycling. And some of these albums, sort of as soon as they're on, instantly transport me back to that time. So there's a real nostalgia about this album for me, and even looking at the cover, it just automatically gives me this feeling of nostalgia, this whole like deep space feel and everything like that. I absolutely love this album. This is probably one of my top all-time ones. I mean, that's why it's in this list. But yeah, there's some amazing mellow vibes in this one. Again, this is quite a stripped back album. It's very simple, but there's a lot of nice effects on the samples, and then the drums are just very complimentary of those samples over the top. There's just a real nice vibe to this overall album. Again, this is 2016. I don't know what happened in 2016, but they were making so many lo-fi albums that were exactly to my taste. So definitely check this one out. For me, it's a really nostalgic one, and I definitely think you'll enjoy this one if you're into your kind of chilled out lo-fi beats. Okay, last and by no means least, this is probably actually my favourite all-time lo-fi album. I would struggle to find one that I enjoy more than this one and that inspired me as much as this one. And it's someone that I think has always been the kind of godfather of lo-fi for me, just from a personal perspective. Every time I put his tracks on, always just wish I could create that sound as well, and that is 1-2. So this is Baker's Dozen by 1-2. I just think from start to finish, this album just blew me away as soon as I heard it, and if you know 1-2, then you'll know exactly the reasons why I'm in love with this stuff. I mean, the snares are absolutely crazy in most of his beats. They hit so hard. I don't know how he gets such attack on his snares. It sounds absolutely incredible. And track 5 on that one, called Borboleta, that is one of my favourite sounding beats of all time as well. It's just so smooth, silky smooth. And another thing about this album which I really enjoy as well is just how delicate the kicks are, but they still kind of punch through the mix. So again, you know, it's a lot about the percussion when you're talking about beats, because that's a really prominent thing about this genre. But I think in particular this album, in terms of percussion, it goes to like a godly level. They're really sympathetic, but at the same time cut through the mix so well. So I think it's absolutely amazing the way that he's chosen the drum sounds for these samples, and yeah, it just goes down as one of my favourite all-time albums for sure. And it's not the only album from 1-2 that just really blows me away. There's obviously Ships and Ships 2 as well, which are absolutely unbelievable albums. And it comes as no surprise as, again, this album apparently came out in 2016. So I mean, this must have been the sort of height of the lo-fi movement, because so many good albums were getting brought out in this year. Well, I've just named 3 in particular out of the 5. I think 3 of them were from 2016. So yeah, absolutely love 1-2. Baker's Dozen in particular is amazing. Go and check that one out, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed with the sound of that one. Okay, that's it for today, guys. I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Like I mentioned, leave a comment below and put your favourite lo-fi album in the comments, and we can all find some new music to listen to. And lastly, I just want to mention my website, SPVIDZ.com. I've got loads of different things on there that support me making videos here on this channel. So I've got beat packs, merchandise, skins for SP devices, etc, etc. So head over to SPVIDZ.com, the links are in the description, and you can support me by picking up something there. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. I'll be back with another upload later in the week. Peace!